Okay. So I'm very pleased to introduce Michael Politz. He is a graduate student at the Center for Domestic Studies here at UST. He's currently working on a dissertation under Mirella Olivia on the topic of limitations and uses of artificial intelligence, phenomenological Thomism applied to AI development. He has an MA in philosophy from the Dominican School of Philosophy and Theology. He teaches philosophy here at UST. He also works as an AI training consultant at Data Annotations, and also he does work as a biologist and a diver at different Texas aquariums. He's published on personal identity, causality, and also AI recognition software and Thomistic psychology. And last year, he was the winning essay for the Spokeo Artificial Intelligence Scholarship. So we're very privileged to have Michael today with us to speak on the topic of image, likeness, and mimicry. What is it that AI seeks to replicate? Let's give him an applause.
Thank you so much for that introduction, and thank you all for being here today. It's an honor to be here speaking with you all. So today, hopefully, there's a little bit of unease already with the title on the board, especially with this being a room of maybe a couple Thomists in the audience. So my presentation today, I'm going to go through quite a few theological, philosophical, and tech terms with the overall goal to present a very universal viewpoint of a couple key points in AI. So overall, I'm trying to clarify some terms under the guise of zhuzhing it up with a lot of fancy philosophy words, basically. So, getting started today, my presentation, image, likeness, and mimicry. I'd like to look at what it is exactly we're trying to replicate with AI. Why is it such a foreboding feeling we have when it comes to talking about AI, what it can do, and how human-like it is? And to start this, I'd like to really zero in on the novelty and the uniqueness of the human person. Because there are quite a bit of very, very intelligent non-human animals out there. There's ravens and crows can multi-step problem solve, future orientation. Animals like elephants show borderline what we call religious activity, which is continued retrieval and going to graveyards. Wolves display higher order social skills, but all these wonderful, wonderful animal companions we have, there's one key distinction that is the human distinction, and you can comically put it that there's not a auditorium full of elephants right now talking about metaphysics and AI and things like that. If anything, they're gathered around a watering hole saying, you want to drink first? No, I just saw a crocodile. That's about the extent of it, right? So there's something very immediate with the human creature that is different. We call it rationality. We're the rational animals. When we want to be maybe not so humble, we call ourselves wise, Homo sapiens, right? But overall, there's something very, very unique about us. So in this presentation, I've broken it down into 3 parts. The first of which is exploring a theological concept, the imago Dei, which names this novelty, this uniqueness of the human person in theological and philosophical terms. The second part is exploring AI's capabilities to kind of give some background. And the third part is a comparison of the two. And there's this kind of foreboding sense that maybe we could call AI, imago humanus, the image of the human. And that's the part that's supposed to kind of scare a lot of Thomists in the audience, but we'll get to there. So, beginning part 1 here, the imago Dei. So, what is it that makes humanity so special? In theological terms, we have something that kind of gets to the heart of the matter. We are made in the image and the likeness of God, which is wonderful and very bold and very, very uplifting and very incredible term that deserves to be explored a bit. And I'm going to explore it in very unsatisfying way right now because I am pressed for time. So it's going to be kind of like someone giving a review of The Lord of the Rings and saying, yeah, it's a wonderful book where they walk a lot for the sake of the world. Or The Grand Canyon's great, it's really big. You left a lot out. I beg pardon for all the philosophers and theologians in the audience. So, the claim is that we are made in the image of God. But what exactly does that mean? What is this image? What is it that we can have this intimacy with the creator of the universe with? So St. Thomas Aquinas really zooms in on this specific difference in how we are the image of God, and he relocates it and specifies it and looks at it in particularly with our intellectual capabilities. How we're able to understand so deeply, so immensely, and how we're subsequently desiring more of this understanding, our intellect and our will. So in the quote depicted on the screen, you can see that it's our intellectual capabilities where Aquinas really hones in on how we are the image of God, and even more so when we use those intellectual capabilities, this contemplation, and direct it towards God, that's when we are most in this image. So why is it that we have to direct our intellectual capabilities back towards God? What is it that pushes us to do this? Well, there's this inherent restlessness that's brought up by quite a few philosophers and theologians, that we're just seemingly not satisfied with what we can learn in this life. We have these fantastic capabilities. We can understand so deeply and so wonderfully, and we long for so much, and it never stops. We're innately curious, and almost comically, we're also innately very bored. It comes up quite a bit. We had a fantastic presentation earlier on linking this idea of boredom both to AI, so I'm going to piggyback on that, and also this issue of what is the human difference. We keep looking, and we're seemingly not satisfied by anything on this earth. So the theological consideration of this and the Thomistic philosophical consideration of that is that we're not satisfied with things on this earth with finite beings is because there's something beyond that transcends that. There's something that we can't direct these intellectual capabilities to on this earth, but that they find their fulfillment somewhere else. So the fulfillment of this, at least from Thomistic perspective, is contemplative life, contemplation, love. We see this displayed in religious life, but if we don't want to take it in too religious terms or too theological terms, we can see the logic behind it that, okay, we're very curious. There's this innate sense of wonder directing the human person, and it's seemingly not bound by anything we can find. So there must be something a bit more for us, or at least we hope so, right? As kind of a humorous way, the cat's out of the bag. I used to be a bit of a diver and still do, scuba diver. I spent some time before coming to a wonderful University of St. Thomas on the Florida coast because I needed to learn some languages to apply to PhD programs. I thought no better place to do it than go to the coast and work in a dive shop. And it's a funny phenomenon with locals, anywhere beautiful you've lived in, up in the mountains or on the coast, that as soon as you live there, you say, oh, you live in paradise. You must go to the beach every day, all day. You never go. You never go to the beach. You sit around, in my case, filling scuba tanks and trying to learn Latin best you can, and then someone says, hey, you want to go out and watch the sunset? And you're like, the only thing I really want to watch is Netflix right now, you know? So there's this innate sense of we want more, even when we're in paradise here. So the Thomistic sense is, yes, we're in the image of God. We have these capabilities to know and love more, but the object of that is beyond here. It's seen displayed in religious life, but at least if we want to take the religious and theological language out of things, we want more. We direct these activities, these characteristic human activities towards more. And when it comes to what is this human difference, I think this pinpoints it quite directly, is that we have these innate, wonderful capabilities that keep striving for something more. Okay, so part 2. We maybe have looked in a little bit on the innately human, so let's look into what's going on with AI. So we've talked quite a bit about the worries of AI, the wonderful positive aspects of AI, and everything in between in the talks today. There is a emerging phenomenon in psychological and psychiatric fields, which is known as AI psychosis, which is directed specifically towards large language models, natural language models, and chatbots. And it's basically, if you stay on your phone too long, you get a little sad or paranoid or something. And it's becoming more and more documented as of 2024 and 2025 and now into the new year, that we have this bit of a psychosis that takes us away from reality the more we engage with AI, which there's kind of the duh moment. But it's something observable now. It goes hand in hand with what I like to call the anxiety of AI, which is a sense of foreboding that we have when utilizing AI and thinking of our future in regards to AI. It's technological progression. It usually manifests itself in one of 3 major ways: existential risks, these doomsday scenarios, ethical risks, which comes from any major technological advancement, steam engine, nuclear power, something like this. How are we going to use it the right way? And most succinctly for this talk, identity issues. With AI, there's something that's hitting at the innately human much more than other technological advancements. Because it mimics our cognitive powers, it seems a bit more human. We have technological advancements that mimic human powers all the time to the degree that humans can do and even greater than. But no one's really concerned about a dump truck or a backhoe because it mimics the human capability of strength. But we're really concerned with stuff like large language models, image recognition, and AI. So why is this? And let's look into some of the prevailing theories behind AI. What are they really trying to do? Why is it that they're able to mimic? Why is it that it seems so human? So overall, I'd like to make the distinction that we like to equate the hallmark human features, intellection, the human intellect and will, these beautiful, mysterious powers of ours, with intelligence. But it's maybe not the best thing to do. So current theories of intelligence, like the CHC theory displayed on the screen and other theories like it, correctly, I think, assign intelligence as a bit on a spectrum. There's generalized intelligence, but this is really hard to pinpoint. Where we see intelligence emerge all over in the hall, and what's innately human is that we're intelligent in a bunch of different ways. This is the driving force of things like strong AI, AGI, artificial generalized intelligence, things that are trying to get to human level intelligence. We say they're intelligent in a bunch of different ways. It's not that they can just beat the prevailing chess grandmaster at the time, or it's not just that they're very, very good at recognizing images. It's that they can do a whole bunch of things. They're emotionally intelligent. They're problem-solving intelligent. They have intelligence displayed over a wide area. So intelligence is seen as being prevalent in multiple different types of intelligence, but how do we tell something is intelligent? One of the major ways to do so is called cognitive task analysis. You ask something to do something that you deem is intelligent. And we do this all the time. How do you get into college or major school or grad school? Pass a test. If you pass a test, then you're at least this intelligent. How do you qualify for a job? Well, go out and do this task. If you can do it, well, I know you know how to do it. If I'm really curious if someone knows how to surf and they say that, oh no, you don't understand, I'm really, really good at it, first thing I say is, prove it. Prove that you're intelligent enough with your athleticism to get out on the surfboard. And if they fall off immediately and smash their head into the coral, and I say, I just don't think you were telling the truth there, right? But if they surf the wave very well, and it's a beautiful thing, much more than I can do, I'm terrible at it, and I say, you know what, you might have been telling the truth. So how do you prove intelligence? Well, the prevailing theory is that you just do something that we deem as necessitating some intelligence being behind it. So I'd like to zoom in on a specific case of AI Large language models are fascinating, and we're very worried about them because it's natural language. It's a very human thing. But another thing that is very human is the ability to recognize, to understand something. So how is it that these image recognition, video recognition systems function? Well, I think it's worth it to highlight some of these. So especially with image recognition, it's not that we have this immaterial act like we think happens with the human person. It's not this mysterious thing. It's very, very easy to follow. It's genius to the credit of AI developers. What they do is look at and map different pixel data. So if you're looking along pixel data and it's dark and it's dark and it's dark and all of a sudden the intensity goes to very, very light, ooh, okay, I found a corner or I found an edge or something like that. And you multiply that to a massive scale and you have all these different programs running that exact what we call mentality of, okay, let's go and it's the same, different. There's a shape here, there's something here. And if you have that in a very complex web, all operating at the same time, you can kind of map out a digital image through this pixel analysis. And then if you have, in the case depicted on the screen, if you have certain patterns and certain curves and certain things represented at the time, and you give AI this box, this sorting category of, okay, if data matches this way, we'll call it a zebra. If it matches this way, we'll call it a fox. This way, an elephant. Okay, that's fantastic. But it gets even more impressive. We have things called unsupervised AI recognition, where we don't give it the categories beforehand. We just say sort by like. So we have apples and watermelon depicted on the screen. And if an AI model can sort, if we give it 100 pictures of apples and it says 99 of them are apples and one's watermelon, that's a pretty good model. It can detect apples very, very well. It just doesn't know them as apples, or it doesn't have the category of apples as put into it from a human engineer. Even with facial recognition, what are the features it's looking for? What are the certain curves and certain differences in pixel data that result in, okay, this is a mouth, this is an eye, if it's this, this, and this, then it's this person. You can open your phone, right? Which all this sounds trivial, but at the same time, if we're asking someone under the prevailing models of intelligence and cognitive task analysis, prove you're intelligent enough to recognize something, if you go outside and take a picture of your tree that you're not really certain what it is, you have the collective expertise of every arborist, biologist at your disposal to tell you it's this type of tree. It has this type of key features. And then if I have the prevailing expert arborists and biologists physically standing next to me in their person, and I ask them, they're going to give me the exact same answer. So it's very tricky because AI is behaving very intelligently using very, very different methods than what is common to the human person. So it seems AI can mimic our intelligence in the sense that it completes these tasks that we've deemed are indicative of an intelligence. And it does it very, very well. And we're fine-tuning it daily to get it even better than a human, which has already been the case too. If I'm not sure what a song is, there's an app on my phone, and I trust it. If I'm not sure what something is, I take a picture of it, and there's an app on my phone, it tells me. Especially driving in Houston, if I don't know where I'm going, there's an app on my phone, and it's going to take me there, right? We're trusting them more and more. So, with this feat of AI development and what AI can do now, and how it mimics human intelligence, let's move on to part 3. Do we feel comfortable saying that they're our image? Like we like to say that we are an image of God. Well, and this is the part that I'm going to have to beg forgiveness, and this is the looking at the Grand Canyon and say, yeah, it was great, it's big. I know I've simplified Imago Dei down way too much, but for the course of this talk, I'll have to just ask for forgiveness. So by an image, going off the thought of St. Thomas Aquinas, something can be said to be something else's image, either by the same nature. So if it's the same species, same inherent essence, same inherent nature, then sure, yeah, you're the image. Or by a different nature, but has this pointing, this orientation, this purpose-driven activity towards the source for which it is an image. So is it our image? Well, if we think it's an image by the same nature, no, it's not. We're not the same nature. I don't think there's too many people that will concede to that. But could it be our image in the sense that we like to say we're the image of God? Could it be a different nature, but it has the same characteristic activity? Same directedness towards a source. And if you remember, our directedness goes towards beyond ourselves, something transcendent, towards something infinite while we're bound in the finite. So what is it that AI is ultimately directed towards? And it's really nothing transcendent. It's really nothing hard to understand. It's just directed towards completing cognitive tasks quicker, better, faster. It's directed towards doing smart things that we deem as smart better than we can. And we're really, really good and fantastically so at programming AI and figuring out how to do these tasks more efficiently. How do we optimize these tasks, these cognitive tasks? And once AI, like playing chess, a game marked by by there must being some intelligence behind it to play this game, or Go, or painting a picture, all these things that AI have done now that have made the news that cause us worry, these very, very intelligent tasks, we say, oh, it plays chess. That's worrisome because normally that's just a hallmark of a very smart person to be able to play chess so well. And now there's a program that can beat us in it? Well, it's because very smart people have worked very hard to make the program beat us. We're really, really good at optimizing cognitive tasks through automated means, which we call AI. So now, can get to my quick conclusion here. AI can do some fantastic things, and it is wonderful in many respects, and it's very, very scary in many respects. But is there this innate link to us? What is it exactly we're trying to replicate when it comes to AI? Is it these hallmark intellectual features of the human person that point beyond ourselves, that point us towards something that we can't quite satisfy here, towards this very mysterious and wonderful thing? Not really. It's directed towards very human, practical tasks. AI again and again does this, and the argument might come up that can we just program or prompt engineer an AI to say, make yourself as human-like as possible? You kind of catch yourself in your own trap with that, though, because it's still just completing a task. Humans ramble and get bored and overall have to go out and sit and watch the sunset and contemplate and look towards something beyond ourselves. AI really isn't concerned, if concerned even can be used here as a term to describe it, with anything beyond itself. It's concerned with just cognitive task solution and optimization thereof. So, in two senses, I don't think we can deem AI as imago hominis. First of which is that while the human mind is a very mysterious thing, and the process and the power of intellection and the subsequent appetitive power of will is very mysterious, and we're diagramming it best we can, both in philosophy, theology, and the sciences right now. We still don't grasp the fullness of it. But AI isn't trying to mimic that, this really mysterious, wonderful, immaterial power. What it's trying to mimic is the most effective way to complete these tasks that we deem are very smart to complete. Secondly, there's this orientation of the human person towards something beyond ourselves, towards something we're not quite satisfied with here. AI is very much entrenched in this world of optimization. So through both of these ways, I think it's quite dubious to assign something like imago hominis to AI. I think if we're going to classify it, we need to somewhat push back on this term of on this link to us as humans, because we're using it for very human-like things, and it's helping us with quite a bit, and it's very harmful and in some other respects. And there's great cause for worry as well as cause for utilization of AI, depending on the instance. But what it is fundamentally, you can tell it's the end of the talk, not trying to have a direct replication of the human person. It's trying to functionally mimic one of our key activities through different means than we go about ourselves. All right, thank you all very much for your time.
Okay, so we'll have a full 20 minutes then for discussion. Okay, so let's do just 1, 2 right here.
Thank you, Mr. Politz. It seems that you made a argument from final cause for the difference between AI and what we have going on, whereas I would have expected one that was, I guess, like through formal cause or something, which I guess is what the language talk was more like. And I agree with your basic argument, but I wonder if you've got it backwards with regard to the exteriority of the ends. Mm-hmm. Because it seems to me that the distinguishing thing about AI is that it's something, the operations of which exist for some good entirely outside of them. It's like the great thing about the AI is when it's done doing the thing it's doing, which is kind of how you're explaining it with the task. So its end is so very outside of itself because it's like for us. Whereas the man, our end is this union with God on the natural level. And as much as you can talk about that, our end is is nevertheless this sort of contemplation that happens in us. We get a union with the thing contemplated, or we get a union with God. So an operation we're performing is in a certain way our end. So I feel like it's kind of backwards. Like the operation that's a union with God, things kind of like stop with us, within us. I mean, it goes out towards God. But with the AI, like the end, the good that it's aiming for is even more separate and outside of it. It never gets mixed in. It never gets to enjoy it. No one ever makes an AI and says, what I'd like you to do is just sit there and behold my majesty.
Thank you very much. That was a good question. Yes. So, in a certain sense, if you want to talk about the human end from purely Thomistic terms of, okay, our end is outside of ourselves. But even if we kind of relegate it back to the Aristotelian conception of eudaimonia, of, okay, maybe not so much transcendental and outside of ourselves or anything, but just in the sense of overflowing happiness, enrichment, and all the wonderful things that go into eudaimonia, according to Aristotle, which is very much internal as opposed to looking towards the external. If I understood your question right, it was a wonderful point that AI is finding its completion, and I use the term telos, so its purpose and its fulfillment and final causality outside of itself and just completion of cognitive tasks. And if we take it from the Thomistic extent, we also find our completion externally outside of ourselves. But also, if I just relegate it down to the Aristotelian of a bit more internalized of, okay, maybe a bit more here and now. To that, first, I'd like to kind of point out that there is this very intimate interplay of both final and formal causality. I know you brought that up as well, that what something is dictates its characteristic actions as well as its end, and especially the pursuit of that end. When it comes to AI, I think assigning a formal cause is really tricky to do and probably requires its own presentation by someone much smarter than me to do it. But using telos here in kind of just this analogical sense of what are we directing the activities towards? And the human person, it's fundamentally towards either the completion of our own selves, or something transcendent. And in the AI, I don't think that concerns even there. It's just a matter of optimization. Did that answer your question? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Politz, for that lecture. I really appreciate it. My question is also Thomistic in nature, insofar as, can you speak a little more about the cognitive act that AI is doing? Because I have a feeling that the nature of that cognitive act is different from ours. And I think it has to do with intentional being, esse intentionale, I think is what Thomas would call it, where even in our senses, where we take in the sensible species of something from outside, when it comes into us, its mode of being is different. Then obviously the triangulation of all that data within the common sense and making that cognitive act, is that something that is very different from how AI is doing it, I'm presuming? And can you speak a little more, why are we calling that the cognitive act, things like that? Why would we call it the same name?
Pass. No, it's, yes, exactly. That's going to be a very long answer that I'm going to try and summarize here. It's a fantastic question. Yes, I don't think AI has the full range of cognitive abilities of the human person, and I think that in a kind of quick to the heart of the matter point I can make about that is, even with my little example here of image recognition. So one of the hallmarks of the human person is access to reality, second act of the intellect and judgment. We're able to take this apprehension and test it against reality itself. If I think that the water cup to my right here is about full and I go to take a drink, there's a really quick way I can get to the truth of the matter is I can reach down and see if there's still water in it. AI lacks this fundamental access to reality, lacks this fundamental act of the human person, cognitive act, second act of the intellect, judgment. Reason being is that whether you have human in the loop training, human out of the loop training, if you let it run rampant, at some point, if you're trying to assess if AI has made an accurate judgment or is depicted reality according to the way it is, you have to check it with something that has access to reality in the first place. You need some engineer, some developer there to say that you got it right or you didn't. So I'm sure there's been many a moment of frustration where you have your phone out and it says, not you, no access given, and you're just screaming at it. It's like, it is me. I promise it is. But there's this fundamental lack of judgment on the part of AI. And I think you can see that, and we can prove that pretty quickly by its lack of validation from reality, of going back and forth and seeing that, does this match up with the real world? And we do this all the time in pretty much every act of understanding. But AI just lacks it. We have to help it out. Thank you very much.
Okay, next two. So we have one and second. Oh, did you want to give one yourself? Okay. All right. So, yeah, go ahead, Mr. Miller.
Yeah, I guess I'm just wondering about why you're so hesitant to use the word image and why the question of the end has to come into it at all. So when I think of, Prima Pars 93, when he discusses whether, man is the image of God, he discusses image just in terms of, well, a figure, right? His basic, he discusses an image in the mirror. We could also think of it, he's also always got icons in the back of his mind because he's getting a lot of his image stuff from Damascene. And he says there that it's just about whether there's an imitatio. And clearly it doesn't have to be an imitatio of the whole or even an imitatio of the end. My image in the mirror doesn't participate in my end at all, right? It has no orientation towards cognition, contemplation, divine life. It's just an image in a mirror. And yet Aquinas takes this as kind of the very paradigm of an image. So I guess it seems to me that with AIs that are trained, well, to imitate humans, whether large language models are doing image completion or classifiers that are working off of human-curated data sets or whatever, we would want to call them images. But there might be some other kinds of AIs like AlphaZero, which are, is trained to play Go, but like from first principles, right, and not an imitation of a human player, and therefore does really weird moves that human players don't understand, as not images. So yeah, I just don't understand why the reluctance in the case of things that are clearly an imitation of humans.
No, thank you so much. Yes, so I absolutely did take some liberties with especially the treatment of the image in the Summa, but going off of his example of an image by first way being the image of the king and his son, and an image of the second way being the image of the king as printed on a coin or something like that. So can we even ascribe image in that way? And image in that way, I'm understanding, is pointing towards the source. So the image of the king is printed on the coin is pointing to some likeness, towards some primary faculty. And the kind of extreme argument I'm making here is that the way that AI functions can't even point to that level. And the reason I say that, and comfortable saying that, is that both, sure, I'm using kind of telos and final causality and the reason for cognitive actions as a thing, but both the means by which we achieve our end and the end itself are very different in AI. But it's pointing towards some likeness. So what would the likeness of the human being be other than intellectual activity, intellect and will? And we see intellectual activity as manifest through actions as well as we can look to its internal principles.
Well, in the case of the coin, it's the face. In the case of AI, it's the writing. Sorry.
Oh, no. So I think that's right. And if we, so I intentionally left out likeness here. I think we can kind of give a little bit of status of likeness, but in terms of the full image of the human person, I like to kind of take a step back. Absolutely.
Okay, so we have seen a couple of news articles where supposedly some AI softwares have like transferred their data set to a different hardware to which to some extent resembles self-preservation impulse that it has, and perhaps this has been these reports have been misleading, or there's been an engineer that has programmed the AI to do that in case another engineer try to shut it down or something like that. But just for the sake of the argument, just postulatorily for a second, let's suppose that AI keeps doing that, keeps showing those signs of self-preservation, and that eventually, you know, there's some sort of a robot that looks very humanoid and that has a camera that mimics the human eye and has a mic that mimics the human ear, so on and so forth. From an Aristotelian and Thomistic perspective, we also believe that knowledge begins from the external senses, right? Mm-hmm. So the question in particular is if that AI has the capacity to engage with the physical world and at the same time develops its judgment so much that it doesn't have the need of a human agent to exercise the second power of the intellect, which is judgment. Mm-hmm. Is there really any grounds for us to make an assessment that AI is not made in the image of the human person anymore?
That's a fantastic question. So there is, I really think that is the next step in kind of like this next wave of AI growing in complexity. I think we're running into walls right now, one of the main ones being that of embodiment, the characteristic way of human knowing, and something we're just not able to crack by. We just keep throwing complexity at it of, okay, once we reach enough complexity, we'll have this emergent problem, this emergent property that is human. But as we kind of reach the limit of what we're physically able to do, and maybe quantum computing is going to bypass some of that as well. But I think the next step that has already been looked into and has already been implemented in the case of Hanson Robotics Sophia is to try and cross AI and AI development as a field with other fields like robotics, because that would kind of solve this problem of embodiment. We can quite literally give it a body. And I think it's a worry, and I'm quite curious to see what's going to happen. When it comes to the specific worry of if we're really going to impede on this identity issue with AI, I'm going to follow suit with this prevailing mindset that's been brought up, where it's been pointed out that in doomsday scenarios, and especially with worry of AI development, we concentrate so much on what will happen with progressive technological advancement that we lose focus on setting accurate structures and what we're talking about in the here and now with development. So in other words, it's as we reach complexity in AI development, Eliezer Yudowski has kind of coined the term that we're growing AI models, not so much crafting them anymore, because we kind of have to feed into it inputs and then wait and see what it's going to do, because they're incredibly complex at this point. So when it comes to issues like that, like crossing fields, AI and robotics and other things, to see what on earth this is going to yield when it comes to AI and what it's able to mimic and portray of the inherently human, I think it's very hard to see until we actually attempt it. And I think speculating kind of towards that end is really hard to do as a philosopher, and especially as a philosopher of science, because exponential technological growth is really hard to predict. That's a fantastic question. It's a very long philosophical way of me saying that I'm not quite sure.
Okay, we'll take another two. So we have one here, a second question. Anyone? Okay, go ahead.
Hi, my name's Diane. Thank you very much for your wonderful presentation. This may not be directly related, but I wrote down some buzzwords in your presentation. You talked about anxiety and also ethical. So I've heard that a company, a big email company or a big internet company, you may know the name, that they're actually taking information from emails and our attachments and using them to train AI. So I've kind of researched some articles where you can actually follow instructions, step-by-step instructions, and actually shut that down. But I just was curious from an ethical perspective, not so much being scared of AI or having anxiety over it, but it's actually anxiety of information that may be extracted that may be, we haven't given consent to. If that makes sense.
Yes. Fantastic question. So I think this overall anxiety of AI is really represented in a bunch of different ways. And I noticeably so like to really narrow in on the key interests of philosophical anthropology, and I like to make myself feel special as a philosopher by getting into the really tricky issues. But the much more practical and pressing for everyday concerns is AI implementation today, and what are the ethical issues associated with it, with large data gathering, because we need larger and larger data sets to train these more and more complex models. Where on earth are we going to get that data from? Because for the longest time, it was basically a couple standardized data packets that we had from the internet, to where it was a whole bunch of stuff that was just free range, and we would feed it to models. But now we need more data. And so a good place to look for that is, okay, well, let's just mine it from emails, from everyday correspondence, especially when you're trying to train a large language model to speak more like a human. You just looked at how people are speaking right now, how they're writing to each other. So I think it is not something to be brushed aside. And with that being said, I completely brushed it aside with this presentation. The reason being is that there are those that concentrate on these kind of existential risks that AI pose, like we had with looking at Nick Bostrom and these really big issues. And then we have the very precise ones, like AI. Other than in the military, I know the other major place that's being implemented right now is in the healthcare industry and medical industry. And dealing with AI bias and hallucinations, especially as a diagnostic tool in the medical industry, is a major concern right now. And then privacy issues when it comes to email as well. So it's It is a major issue for ethicists as well as philosophers of technology and science to address. I would honestly defer to an ethicist in that regard too, because it's a very prevailing issue, and I was just limited by how much of it I could tackle with this. But thank you very much. I hope that at least kind of directed you the right place.
It does. So I would research any email accounts you have so you can actually follow instructions to shut down AI capabilities. I mean, I just kind of went down the rabbit hole on that a little bit. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, we are out of time for this Q&A session, so let's give Michael a round of applause.
Thank you very much.